Hi, hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome all. We'll just join in, like, wait for 5 minutes for people to join in, and then we can begin. Okay, we'll begin the webinar. Hi everyone. Welcome to the Wellness Wednesday webinar. I'm so glad you could join us today. We've got an important and meaningful topic lined up today. So let's make this space, where we learn, share, and get support from each other. So we'll begin it. Uh, so have you ever noticed like how we all have our, unique ways of expressing ourselves? Many times while communicating, some of us talk with our hands, some with our eyes, and some with words. And it's harsh reality for many people on the autism spectrum, where the way they express themselves, it's isn't always understood, but it's just as meaningful as it is for us. So, autism is not a limitation, it's a different way of experiencing the world. Some of the most brilliant minds in history, like artists, scientists, thinkers, have been neurodivergent. And the key to inclusion isn't changing like how they communicate, but changing how we listen to each other. So today on Autism Awareness Day, we focus on listening, understanding, and creating a world where every voice is, valued. Inclusion is a promise. It's not just a word. It's time to turn awareness into more of inclusivity and action. So here I am, Gayatri. I lead the branded content at Onsurity, and I'll be host for today's Wellness Wednesday webinar. Aut- and Before we begin, please note that this is an interactive session. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We'll address them towards the end. And to guide us through this conversation, we are privileged to have Ms. Akhila with us today. With over 8 years of experience in pediatric speech therapy, Ms. Akhila has been a pillar of support for countless families, helping children with autism overcome speech delays, social challenges, communication barriers. She's here to share real practical strategies that truly make a difference. So today she's going to walk us through why individuals on the autism spectrum communicate the way they do and how we can respond in ways that foster trust and inclusion. So Akila, over to you.
Thank you, Gayatri. Good evening, everyone. On this occasion of Autism Awareness Day, which is today, I am glad that so many of you have taken time to join us for a very special webinar, When Love Finds Its Voice in Autism's Language. As Gayatri introduced me already, I'm a speech language pathologist and I'm a founder and director of Dhwani Center for Speech and Language Intervention. So before we jump into today's topic, I would want to hear a bit about everyone here and how you are connected to the topic of today's discussion. So will you please take a minute to tell me which one of these options that I'm going to show you will suit you the best? So are you a person who has just heard the word autism? Are you a person who has met autistic individuals? Are you a parent or family of autistic individuals? Are you a professional who is working with autistics? Or are you here to just understand and be aware about more things to know about autism? You can just take a minute and probably in the chat box tell us, how this topic connects with you today. So whichever is the option that resonates the most with you, you can probably type that down so that we understand the kind of audience that we have here with us today. Is everybody able to open the chat and start typing?
Yeah, people are putting it in Q&A section. Shall I read it for you?
No, I can. Yeah, I'll say that. Okay. Okay, so we have some of you who just wants to understand and be aware of autism. That is really nice, because that is what we want to do. And some of you are family of autism as well. Yes, you would have to type the option here. Okay, so I think we will now get to our topic of discussion for today. So we'll try answering these questions today. What is autism? What are the things that we can see in autistic individuals to say that, okay, they might be on the autism spectrum? What is it that we can't see, like some subtle signs that we usually miss out? And what can we do as a society or as an individual who knows another autistic individual? What can we do? And we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. Like Gayatri was mentioning, if at all you have any questions in between the session, please feel free to put it on the Q&A, and we will definitely get back to it at the end of the session, only for the reason being that the flow of the topic shouldn't go away. So we will definitely answer all your queries, but in the end, since we have a dedicated time for that. And also, I would want to tell you that like autism is really broad topic. There are so many things to know, and things are evolving every day. The presentation of the condition as well, and the types of interventions that we do. Everything is, evolving every day. So I am trying the best of my knowledge to give you whatever that I know. So anything that we don't know, let's try to learn together as well. What is autism? Autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. Neurodevelopmental means that there are some things how the brain and the nervous system grows and develops, particularly during early life of a person. So it also has processes that will shape skills like thinking, learning, communication, motor function, and social behavior. So when there is a disruption in this development, that is the neural development, one of the conditions that can occur is autism. So we say that it is autism when we see that there are difficulties in social communication or interaction, or if there is restricted repetitive behaviors, interests, or activities. So what is social communication? Social communication means the way we interact with the society, how we express ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, how we convey messages either verbally or non-verbally to another person. And also, how do we understand what the other person is trying to share? So this is what makes us social beings. And autistic individuals will have difficulty in this particular area. With respect to the restricted repetitive behaviors, we will talk about it in the coming slides. So this is autism. But what is it that we see? Like what is overtly visible to us, which will make us, have a thought that, okay, this person might have autism? The first thing that we can see, as I was telling you, is communication difficulties. So as humans, we are always wanting to have social interactions with other people, right? We say humans are social beings. So the way we function in the society, by interacting with each other, by understanding how are we supposed to be in different situations, how are we going to have a conversation, how do we continue a conversation, those are some things which individuals with autism will find it difficult to do. There may be some signs that we notice very early on in a person's life, like when there is 3-4 month old baby, we might see that when we smile, a neurotypical child would respond back with a smile. Maybe autistic individuals may not respond with a smile even in the early years. A very common complaint that we hear is, I keep calling, my child, but the child doesn't respond to his name. So that might be another thing that you can see. And they may have a different way of communicating, which might not be how I and you might do it. So they have the communication issues. That will be the first thing that you might notice. And they might also have speech and language delay. That is how probably, for example, a 2-year-old should talk and interact. These kids may not be talking and interacting in the same way. So there might be a delay. The second thing that we can see is with respect to sensory issues. So, this is with respect to the senses that we have. Can you all guess how many senses are we talking about? Like, I'm sure everybody knows about the senses that we have. But here, can you guess how many senses is that we are, actually talking about here? What do you think? Take a random guess. How many senses it might be we are referring to? Okay. 5. Any other answers? We definitely know about the 5 senses that we already have, right? One is the visual, that is the one that we see with. One is with respect to hearing, what we call it as auditory. The third one is with respect to smell, then taste, touch, which is we call it as tactile. These are the 5 that we already know. There are 2 more that we usually consider, which is called vestibular and proprioception. Vestibular sense is the one that we refer to for balancing ourselves, and for which is we refer to for movement. That is the vestibular sense. And proprioception is our awareness about the body in the environment, and also with respect to deep pressure. So that is proprioception. So totally we're thinking about 7 senses. Now, we all have sensory perception. That means we can perceive it. We can feel something. Like if there is something cooking, I definitely can smell it because of my olfactory sense. If there is a sound coming around me, I can hear it because of my auditory sense. So that way we are all able to feel it. So that is the sensitivity. But in autistic individuals, there might be hypersensitivity or hyposensitivity. Hypersensitivity means, say for example, I am hearing a sound, maybe like a bell. I might hear it, this loud. But an autistic individual who has hypersensitivity to sounds might hear it this loud, which is not tolerable for them. Versus hyposensitivity, which is lesser sensitivity. For example, if I squeeze something, I might just feel it this light. But for an autistic individual who is hyposensitive, this might not even feel like a squeeze. We might have to squeeze really hard for them to understand that there is some kind of a sensory stimulus being given to them. So they always keep seeking that kind of pressure. So that means they are hyposensitive to pressure and they need more of it. So it is not that they have it, it's their body which needs that kind of a sensory input. Okay, you might have seen some, if you have seen autistic individuals, some might, with respect to vestibular sense, which I said with respect to movement, some of them might like to keep moving their fingers or like to keep moving their hands and watching it. Some of them might want to keep walking around all the time. Some might also want to keep jumping up and down. So this is how their body needs that vestibular sense, which is not being met otherwise. Okay. You can also imagine, like they might be doing it so that they are regulating themselves. Say, for example, you are in your office or in a weather, in a country where it is really, really cold. And at this point in time, you don't have your jacket or anything to keep you warm. Will you be able to focus yourself in the work that you're doing when you're feeling really, really cold? So when you're in a situation where you're feeling very cold, will you be able to focus on the task that you're able to do, that you're supposed to do? Is it possible? Sorry, I don't see the answers right now. Uh, no. Yeah, you will not be able to focus on the task that you're doing because your body is focused on the cold that you're feeling, not the task that is supposed to be done. So then you would be doing something so that you don't feel cold, and you will, so that you can resume your work, right? You might either rub your hand or you might drink something really hot so that you're warm enough to do it. So these actions that you do to regulate yourself is not considered as something which is not typical, right? You're doing it so that you're coming back to focus on to whatever you're supposed to be doing. So the same thing even children with autism might do, like for them to come back to regulate themselves and try to get into the task at hand, they might be doing certain things so that they're coming back to focus. Okay. The next thing can be uh, highly restricted interests. So restricted means that it is only limited to certain things and they might not be open to other new things. And they may have restricted interests with a very specific, and it is very intense. For example, some of them might be interested in certain, some of them might be interested in certain types of numbers. So they will be ready to know anything and everything about those numbers. Some of them might be interested in trains. So they might be so interested in it that their interest might be so intense that they would know each and every part of that train that even we might not be aware of. So it is very restricted as well as very intense. Then there might be children who might like to watch certain things. So this is combination of both the sensory as well as the restricted interests, because it is visually nice for them to watch, and as well as it is their interest, as well as they like to watch that. It is their interest to do that. Then some of them might be interested in music. So they will be they like music so much that they are able to focus on that so well. They learn that really nicely so that they can, some of them might grow up to become professionals in that as well. The next thing that we might see is repetitive behaviors. So repetitive means that, they're going on doing it again and again and again. They like to keep doing it again and again. So one thing that you might see is the kind of movements that they do. That might, be happening again and again. There might also be insistence of sameness. Like, one routine, they might prefer it to happen it the same way every single time. And when it gets upset, they might, when it changes, they might get upset from that. Or they're doing a certain play, like they're playing with blocks in a certain way, and they're usually playing in that way, and if that changes, they're not able to accept it. So I'll just show you a quick video where this is a bit from a sitcom show, and there is this character called Sheldon. We'll just watch how he is very particular about his routine that usually happens every week for him.
this end of this couch, turned on BBC America, and watched Doctor Who. And he's still asleep. Every Saturday since we've lived in there.
Yeah, so he says that every Saturday at this particular time, I'm going to do this particular thing. While I'm watching this particular thing, sitting at this particular spot, he doesn't mind even if somebody else is sleeping on that spot, but he wants to make sure he is on that place because he wants that sameness to be present with him. Okay. The next thing that might be easily, noticeable by us is emotional regulation issues. So imagine we are feeling very hungry. And at that point in time, when we're feeling really hungry, we don't have food immediately in our hand. We are waiting for the pressure cooker to cool down, or we've ordered food, it's not yet come. For some reason, we don't have it with us at that moment. So imagine how you would be feeling. Won't we be really irritable at that time? And added to that, if you have a throat infection and you're not able to talk as well, so then imagine the added irritatedness that might come when you're not able to express yourself and others are not able to, understand what you're feeling. So that is how, children with autism might feel. They might feel that need to communicate how they're feeling, but they're not able to do so. And because of that, we might see them throwing tantrums or them crying, and we don't know what is the reason they're doing that for. And that is one place where we would feel that it is difficult for us to handle them. So we might feel helpless about what to do. So these are some of the things that are easily visible for us. The way they communicate, the sensory issues that they have, their interests which are highly intense and restricted, repetitive behaviors, and emotional regulation. But there are some things that are subtle, and we have to delve in deep to find out that if this person has those traits or not. So with respect to the signs that we already discussed, say for example, the social communication issues, what some of autistic individuals might be really verbal, like they're talking a lot, but what if whatever they're talking is it relevant to what the topic is right now? Is it making sense in this situation? Are they able to hold a conversation? Are they able to initiate a conversation or to maintain a conversation with a person? So if you notice that if they're finding difficulty in these, but still they're talking a lot, then there might be a chance that they might be an autistic individual. Or, they have difficulty making friendships and maintaining relationships. Like we were discussing that we are very social beings, right? So we have a lot of friends, we have, a lot of relationships, which, makes up a big part of our lives. So what if individuals are not able to do that? So then that might be another sign of being on the spectrum. And like I was telling you, how they're using their sensory issues, it might actually be to regulate themselves. Like they're trying to regulate themselves so that they can be part of a conversation, or they can, have a back and forth interaction with you. And sometimes even talking out of context might be their way of interacting. For example, a child might like to watch this show called Peppa Pig, where Peppa might like to play bubbles with her friend. So this child would have heard Peppa saying bubbles while she's playing with her friend. And another child comes to this child's house. So instead of saying, "Hi, can we play?" which is how we typically interact, this child might say bubbles, which is the way that he or she has seen an interaction being started off. So there, you might feel that it is out of context. Like when somebody comes home and suddenly the child is saying bubbles, you might feel that it is out of context, but it is their way of trying to start an interaction with you. So these are some things which, only if you closely observe, you might be able to realize. Or we might just brush it off by saying, okay, maybe this person is like that. It is not like, like how everybody is. But if we closely observe and ask the family more about it, maybe they might be an individual on the spectrum. Maybe. Okay. So now when we talk about all of us, we say we're all different, right? Like no five fingers are the same, no two individuals are the same because of the way we are. So the same applies to autistic individuals. Instead of seeing autism as a disorder, why don't we change the way we look at it? So why don't we look at it from a neurodiverse perspective? For example, we all have different types of hair, right? Like one might have straight, curly, wavy, one might have thin hair, one might have thick hair. We accept everybody with all kinds of hair, even no hair. We don't say just because you have curly hair, I don't want to talk to you. Or just because you have straight hair, I want to keep talking to you. It's not like that. We talk with everybody with, all kinds of hair. That's how we have accepted different kinds of hair. The same way, like I was telling you, autism is something where they have a neurodevelopmental issue. So that means their brain is developed in a different way. Their brains are different. So when we just look at it from that lens, that they are people with a different brain type from typical brains, then it means that they're a different brain and it's not a disorder at all. So keeping this neurodiversity perspective in mind, we can accept them for whoever they are, and then we try to change the way we interact with them, right? So as a society, what is it that we can do? We might be having neighbors who are autistic. Our kids might have friends who are on the spectrum. We might have a colleague who is having autism, or we might be a professional who is working with an autistic individual. We all form the society of this autistic person's life. So as a society, what is it that we can do so that they are not viewed as different? First thing that we can do is accept them. So we accept that, like how we all are different, even they are unique in their own way. They are their own neurotype. So once we, start accepting them and we start giving them the way for them to accept themselves, and also for their family to accept them. You must have seen, so many people, they might not be a part of so many social events, or they don't come out as much, or they don't disclose that, this person has autism. This is because of the stigma that they're facing, that, what will people think? What will people say? So if as society, we accept them for who they are, so much of their stress is reduced, and, it helps them live their life in a better, easier way. So acceptance will be the first thing that we can do. Accept them for who they are and how they are. Then we can understand or identify their strengths. Like we all are good at different things, right? Like I might be good at something which the other person may not be good at. The other person may be good at cooking. I might not be good at cooking. So we all do something that we are good at. And sometimes we make that our profession, so that, day in and day out, we're doing something that we love. So because of their interest, like I was telling you, that they have high intense interests, they are good at things that they love. So we are also good at things that we love, right? Like if I like music, I would want to learn it. I would want to indulge myself more in it. So they also would do that. So we just need to identify those strengths and use those strengths, so that will become a path to open up interacting with them, right? So if we identify the strengths, then they also feel more empowered that they can do something and they're good at something, and they're not always being corrected for things that they can't do, right? The third thing that we can do is understand their sensory preferences and their interests. I was telling you, like how, we all have sensory preferences, and our body would need certain sensory, inputs, so that we are regulated, right? Sensory preferences will actually open doors to make them interact a little more. So imagine, uh, I would give you my own example. Like when I went to a new school, I got my best friend, who's still a friend of mine, only for the fact that we both had a same interest in talking about a particular thing. That's how we became friends. That's the story of our friendship. So even if you are in a new group, like in a new office or at a new, group setting, would you go and interact with somebody who is, who you've heard talking about something that you like, or would you go and interact with somebody who you got to know that they don't even, they're not talking anything that is of your interest? Who of these two people would you interact with? Person one, who you share interests with, or person two? Why don't you tell me about it? You start an interaction with a person who you're having interests with, or with a person who you don't share any interests with? Yes, so we would start interacting with people who have same interests as us. So we would open up to somebody who has more in common with us. Same applies to autistic individuals. So if you would want to strike a conversation with them, then you would have to use their sensory preferences and start from there. So you would, they would either make you their best friend, or if you fail to understand their sensory preferences and try talking to them about your own interest or something which is irrelevant to them, then it might go the other way around. Right? So we would want to understand their preference. Just we have to look at them, look at what they're doing, what they're looking at. That itself will try to help you to give a direction about where it would, lead to. The next thing that we can do, which is a big pillar, is support them. Not just the children who are on the spectrum, but even the family. So imagine, parents have got a diagnosis of their child being on the autism spectrum recently. So they have to invest so much of time to take their child to, first of all, to accept that, then to take their child to so many interventions that they're going to. They might be going to speech therapy, occupational therapy, or the classes that they're really interested in. The parents would also have their own work to do, house chores, so many things going on in their life. So they would really love if there is someone who they can talk to. They can just vent out their emotions to when they're, they're finding it difficult. Some days might be hard. So they need somebody who they can talk to, have a conversation with. So if you know somebody who is a family of an autistic individual, be a friend to them who they don't have time to be. Keep checking in on them. And with respect to adults with autism, we can support. If you have a colleague who is an autistic, then again, check in whether they are overwhelmed, whether they need a break. If you are an employer of an autistic individual, just see what are their strengths and how that can be used to channelize their work to be productive. How can they be given a schedule that they're they have that kind of a sameness in their routine so that they can be more productive. And whatever they're doing, try to encourage them and reinforce them. That is how we can be supportive to them, just by being there with them whenever they require. The last, but actually not the least thing that we can do is with respect to the future generation. Like the current children are our future generation, right? So it is equally important to educate the children who may be neurotypical. Meaning they are not diverse, they are typical, about how to interact with the neurodiverse population. We need to, like how we learned what are the interests and strengths, we need to educate them about how to identify a neurodiverse person's strengths, likes and dislikes, and how to make them feel included. If you will have seen, like I have seen that situation happening many times. If a group of children are playing, then an autistic child sometimes is left out, or a neurodiverse child is left out. So let's teach our children to include everybody, so that as a society now and in the future, everybody learns to treat everybody in the same way. And also we need to teach them how to be sensitive and empathetic towards this population. They need to learn how they might be feeling in such a situation, or when something happened, they need to be sensitive to how their feelings might get hurt with our actions. So with, educating the future generation, we can definitely see that whatever we are trying to do right now as adults will continue even in the coming years. And let us always try to put ourselves in their shoes so that we, at least 1% understand how they are feeling right now, be it the family or be it the individual with autism. So let's try to step in their shoes and see what is it that they're feeling, what is it that they're going through, how is it that they're, failing to be included in so many situations. Let's try to bridge those gaps in whichever way, however we can. So just to, help you remember, when you think of autism or today's webinar in general, what all is that you can do? A is for acceptance. That is the first and foremost thing that you can do. And then you try to understand their preferences. Then, T would be teaching the future generation. I is identifying their strengths. S is being a pillar of support. And M is putting myself into their shoes. So whenever you think of autism or any neurodivergent population, just think of these things that you can actually do to make them feel included. So if you feel that, whatever we discussed right now is very general things, like it can apply to anybody. But if you feel that looking at the signs that we discussed, there is somebody in your mind who you feel has some signs, please make sure that you refer them to a professional who can help them. If the family is already seeing a professional, well and good. But if you feel that they are not, slowly try to, sensitize them to how bringing in somebody early might help them in a long run. So it can be a speech therapist, or it can be a pediatrician, it can be an occupational therapist, a psychologist. These are the team of people who will help that particular individual. But even if you feel that you've observed and you don't want to bring it up with that person right away, so that they don't feel offended about it, just try to interact with them, because now you know how to interact with them. Just keep doing it, build their trust, become their friend, and then you can put them in the direction of taking the right step. So let's try accepting autism, how autistic individuals, how they are, and try to include them and accept neurodiversity. And in a world where we can be anything, let's always choose to be kind. So now we are open to questions. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. In the meantime, I'll go back to the questions to see if there were anything that we missed.
Yeah, also I wanted to make sure, like, you can put your questions, anything on Q&A chat, Q&A box. Chat is somehow not working for us, so.
So I think there is a question from Gayatri. If some kids feel difficult to interact with the start to cry, and they start to cry, how to understand them? So I would say, like, first look around the child. Is something very different for them? Is it a completely new setting that they have gone into? Is it something that is making them feel uncomfortable? Then try, after ruling out everything, if you feel that they're still not able to interact and they're just crying, then see, if you can give something that they like, so that they start interact. If you're talking about one child and another child, try to see if you can give them same interests that they have, so that they start to play with that. Or if you feel you want to prepare this particular child who is crying, to say that, okay, we are going to go to this particular place, we might meet these children, what do you think you want to do with them? Do you want to play? Do you want to run? Do you want to catch? And pick up those activities that are their sensory preferences, so that they'll be more open to trying out those things. Rituji, what you have asked is your son will talk to himself, so should we stop him or not? So it depends on what it is that they're talking. Like I was mentioning earlier, we might feel that it is irrelevant, but that they might be connecting it with something that they have seen in this particular situation. Say for example, they see me. If they see me being sad, they have observed something in another situation where somebody else was feeling sad, that they will copy that particular thing to say over here. Or there might also be another situation where, because of their high sensory interest, they might be remembering something that they have watched, like a particular song or a particular scene from something that they have seen, or some sentence that somebody has told them. They might keep repeating it. This is part of their repetitive behavior. So try to turn that into a meaningful sentence. So, for example, the most common thing a parent or somebody would tell the child is, no, don't do that. So if the child is going on saying, no, don't do that, no, don't do that, then firstly, it is from our end to, give the words that exactly the child has to say, so that the child imitates what we are saying. Secondly, if the child is going on saying that, then you can say, Mama, I don't want this. Mama, I did this. So try to change their, you have to interpret their words into some things that you feel that they are going to say. I hope this answers your question. Any self-help groups or NGO who help the needy for therapy? So self-help groups, I'm not sure, but NGO also, like there are many therapy centers, there are so many clinics, based on the city that you're joining from. If you see self-help groups, you can find a lot of groups on Facebook. If you just put like a support group, or if you're in a city that has a speech therapy center or a pediatric early intervention center, they might, you can contact them, where they would be having some kind of a support group of their own. So I am also, we also at Dhwani, we have a lot of intervention that is focusing on the population who is in the autism spectrum, which it can be individual sessions or in a group setting, because they're finding a lot of difficulties while interacting with, other people. So if you have any further queries, definitely you can feel free to note down my contact details and, reach out to me if you need anything. We're still, I think we still have time for questions, right, Gayatri? If there's anybody who's
Yeah, we do have, but I don't see any questions anymore. I think we can wind up. Oh, so as we wrap up, let's remember autism speaks in its own way, and it's up to us to listen. Inclusion isn't just a word, it's a commitment. So if today's discussion resonated with you, let's take an action, whether it's spreading awareness, supporting a family, or talking about inclusivity in schools or workplaces. Every step matters. Thank you, Akila, for your invaluable insights, and thank you all for joining us and making a difference. If you want more updates on wellness or our future events, make sure to follow us on our social media. I'll be linking here the links so you can go through. See you at the next Wellness Wednesday session. Stay aware, stay inclusive, and listen with love. Thank you.
Thank you.